All right, we are, where is the camera? Oh, it's right there. We are back. Video 2, day 2. Just trying to create shit, man. To be honest with you, people asked me what this channel was going to be. What this channel is going to be is everything. You know, we'll talk about politics, we'll talk about social shit, we'll talk about what's on your mind, we'll talk about what's on my mind. I'll take you around town. I live in LA. You know, I just want to, I don't know, start getting my ideas and my thoughts out there. You know, I told you guys I'm not super political in the sense that I don't identify with a political party, but I'm free to discuss whatever you guys want. You know what? Watch this. Oh, all of a sudden you guys can see my eyes. That's perfect. You know, the perfectionist in me wants to start the video over, but I'm not going to do that because we're in free flow right now. So, as I was saying, not affiliated with political parties. Oh, dude, I like conspiracy theories. I pretty much know every conspiracy theory there is out there. Been around. Fire truck, something's going on. But, yeah, if you guys want to talk about that, I'm down. You know, let's talk about a conspiracy theory, or let's talk about rabbit holes. You know, let's talk about a local rabbit hole that I am very familiar with. The Palisades Fire. I was there that day. I grew up in the Pacific Palisades. I went to high school there. All my friends were from there. My family still lives in that area. My mom and dad. And you know, the ATF is in charge of the investigation. Still hasn't released their report yet, but. You know, I'm not even go out on a limb here. My gut hunch, and it's something that no one's talking about. People have talked about, oh, it was a fire from 7 days before that the LAPD called, or sorry, the LA Fire Department called, and you know, the wind that day reignited it, or it was you know, that fire was caused by fireworks, supposedly by kids. And just happened to start in the same area that the Palisades, the real Palisades fire started in. You know, they talked about power lines early on, but if you look at that area, there's no power lines. The fire started in a remote area above Temescal Canyon Park called Skull Rock. It's quite a hike to get up there. There are no power lines in that area. And, you know, something that was talked about early on was there were 4 hikers up there that day. And they actually took video of themselves running away from the fire, the ignition of the fire, which they claimed they just happened to stumble onto. You know, I call bullshit on that. My gut feeling has always been that those 4 men had something to do with the fire. This fire has been suspicious from the get-go. Here, let's go with another rabbit hole. Being in the Palisades that day, this is definitely not going to earn me any friends, but the LA Fire Department did not deploy to town. So, you know, I'm thinking about doing a video about this, so I can, an actual like kind of documentary, maybe a short, where I can explain all this. When the fire started initially, on the outskirts of the Pacific Palisades, there's an area called the Highlands, and that's a community where the fire started heading. And the fire department was deployed to that area. And right next to that area there's a street that runs up runs up by Marquez Elementary, and that street's called Lockman. And so that's a distinct area that's kind of to the northeast end of the Palisades. There were fire department deployed to that area on January 7th. I was in the Palisades from basically, I want to say 11:45 a.m. So basically an hour after the fire started to, I got out of there around 4:30 or 4:45. In my time, I was in town. I was by the high school. I was over by the El Medio Bluffs. Yeah, I was all over. I went up into the El Medio Knolls, or the Marquez Knolls. That whole area was engulfed. Total, like every other house up there was on. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, this is You have to understand, nobody's ever seen anything like this. That fire was pretty much hell on earth. But I was there and I saw how a lot of, there was a firestorm and it kind of pushed up into Malibu. But within the Palisades, most of the fires were starting by these little spot fires on dead grass and in bushes. And that's how most of the houses were burning. And like I'm saying, I didn't see any fire department deployed. When I was at the El Medio Bluffs around noon to 1 p.m., just kind of observing the fire's movement and things like that, the LAFD and LAPD were making their way north on PCH up to Gladstones. That was their command center. But I never saw them deploy south on PCH. So they went up north past town and up to basically the Sunset at PCH Junction area. And that area was blocked because of traffic and cars and chaos. But they went up to that command center, and I'll call a spade a spade. They never deployed out of that command center. Maybe they went north into Malibu, but they didn't come into the Palisades. They were never in town. And to back that up, so when I left town around 4:45, I needed to go to the other side of the fire where my parents were located and help them evacuate. And so when I left, thank God, there were a lot of YouTube documenters and YouTube vloggers that made their way into the Palisades that day. And when they were in town, they saw much the same thing. LAFD never deployed into the Pacific Palisades, the town, the heart of town. And that's where a lot of houses burned. That's where schools burned, churches burned, the grocery stores burned, everything burned in that area. The only thing that didn't burn was the mall. And that's because the mall was owned by Rick Caruso, who's a local billionaire and a commercial real estate development guy. But I don't know why, but he knew there wasn't going to be fire department in town that day. And so he had hired a private crew somehow on the day of the 7th while all this chaos is going on. Hired a private fire crew, and they stationed in front of that mall and saved it. Most of town burned in the evening and the night and the morning of the 7th and the 8th, after midnight and into the early AM. That's when it all burned, because the fire department wasn't doing anything. They've tried to use the alibi that, the San Ynez Reservoir, I think that's what's called. There's a reservoir right next to that initial area where the fire started that I told you about, the Highlands. There's a reservoir up there, but from what I understand, the emergency water supply, i.e. the fire hydrants in the Palisades, were not dependent on that. There had been an early retrofitting. See, this is stuff you all learn. I remember, so during the fire, the fire burned for days. I went up to this observation point to kind of get a look at how the fire was burning, because the information coming out of the burn zone at the time was awful. So went up there. You had to basically look at the fire to gauge what was going on. So I went up to this observation point. I just happened on the way down to run into this man who was friends with Rick Caruso, the billionaire developer I told you about. And I just started chatting with my brother, and I started talking with him. And he had told us how the Palisades had been, 10 or 15 years prior, had been retrofitted to where they were no longer dependent on that reservoir. And there was basically some type of bypass switch at Topanga Canyon in PCH that they could divert the county's water supply into the Palisades in that area if there was a large fire event. And he said that valve was turned on around 3 p.m. on the 7th. So that kind of reinforced that the water supply in the Palisades wasn't dependent on the empty reservoir in the Highlands. There's also documented footage of, residents that stuck around and private security that were in the area that also, I look awful lot. I'm going to get better at looking in the camera. I just look awful lot because I'm in thought, and sometimes it's easier for me to look off and get into thought, but I'll get better at looking at the camera. So that reservoir was empty, but there's video of people in the Palisades on the 7th and the 8th at their homes or private security, and they're using the hoses. So there was a water supply there. There's also footage of houses that have burned, and there's water spraying everywhere because all the pipes have burned, and there's no valves to control, the water pressure from the main into the house. So I don't believe that there was no water. I believe that the fire department wasn't deployed. Why they weren't deployed? So I'll admit it, I was there that day. The traffic was awful. LAPD did an awful job of evacuating people. The only reason more people didn't die is because, just acts of God, and because Good Samaritans helped people get out of there. And so the LAPD did a horrible job with evacuating. They essentially, the day of the fire, the Palisades basically runs along Sunset Boulevard, and the day of the fire, and there's a bunch of kind of hills that go around it. And the day of the fire, when everybody had to evacuate, they have to come out of those hills down onto the Sunset from all these streets. And there's two ways out. There's either east, or there's west on Sunset towards the beach, or east on Sunset towards Brentwood and Westwood. The day of the fire, everybody coming out of the Highlands and out of the Marquez area, because that's the way the fire was initially moving, they all got jammed up around the Highlands and Sunset, and there became a traffic jam, and the road was impassable. So that exit out of the Palisades was sealed. No one could get out. There was only one way out of the Palisades that day, which was eastbound on Sunset, and then you had to either go down to Mescal Canyon onto PCH. But if you went on to PCH, what happened around 1 o'clock was there was an accident in the McClure Tunnel, and that sealed off. This is what an LAPD sergeant told me, because although LAPD didn't do a lot that day, I did interact with them, and I think I had 2 conversations with them that day. I had more conversations with news crews because I thought the news crews had a connection to the outside. So the power went off in the Palisades around 1 or 2, I don't remember, but the power went off, and so the EMS signals were like draining my phone, and I was taking a lot of video, and so they're like, my phone was dying, and there wasn't a lot of information coming in because, well, there wasn't a lot of information, period, because there was a windstorm that day, and all the news helicopters were grounded. Oh, President Biden and Governor Gavin Newsom were also in town that day. They just happened to be in town that day. It's all weird. If you want me to talk more about it, I will. But this is my second video, and it's getting around 13-minute mark, which is where I left off yesterday. I don't know how long YouTube will let me make these videos. For the people that said I need to edit these down, I'm going to get to that. But for the time being, right now, I just want to generate content. So yeah, dude, I believe the Palisades fire was started by arson by 4 men at Skull Rock at 10:30 on January 7th. Whether it was malicious or not, so I'll give you a quick history of these men. These 4 men, I'm not super sure about their background. I have looked into them, but there's not a lot. But they haven't hit their social media footprint shows that I don't want to say that they were firebugs, but they were definitely, yeah, I will say they were firebugs. They were kind of like me when I was a kid, I was kind of fascinated with fire, and they had all these videos of them playing with fire and smoking marijuana in nature, which, look, dude, I've done that. I get it. But, when you have those videos up on your social media and you just happen to be running away from the origin of the fire, it's a bit suspicious. Oh, one of the real kickers is the ATF never even investigated the 4 men up at Skull Rock. They basically gave interviews with like some backpacking magazine and like local media about how they just stumbled upon the largest wildfire in Los Angeles history, most destructive. But yeah, that there's some inside info that maybe you didn't know. Maybe you don't care. I don't know. You guys can tell me in the comments. But yeah. It's 14:39. Tell me what you guys want to hear. I'll talk about the news, that like global news. I mean, obviously that shit's crazy, and I know a lot about kind of geopolitics and all that stuff. So maybe that'll be in the next video. Maybe the next video will just be I'll go out in LA and I'll show you guys around to some areas. Maybe the Palisades. But yeah, video 2, day 2. Kind of rambling. Maybe I told a story, maybe I didn't. I don't know. I'm new to this. Hopefully you guys will enjoy my journey. I'm kind of enjoying it. That was therapeutic. But have a good day. Like and subscribe. Sounds super gay. But like and subscribe, please. And peace out, Seacrest.